Welcome to AAI, yes, the one and only Ask an Innovator. I know and appreciate that you could be doing anything in the world right now, but you are here with us today. And we are in the most beautiful city, Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. See, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Innovation, beholden or not, is a beautiful thing. Innovation means that you are first. First to market, first to try something new, first to succeed where others have failed, or simply first to fail. At least with innovation, when you fail, you still come in first. This show is always about innovation and the courage to always end up winning. Today's episode features this beautiful city. What is our community X factor and what should we X out? Are we glass half empty or are we glass half full? I could think of only one true community leader and innovator to help us explore the nervous system of Thunder Bay. A man with his finger on the pulse. Food, technology, farming, business, now politics, and forward thinking are what I think about when it comes to Jim Stady, owner of Kingmaker Media, Eat Local Pizza, the former chair of our Chamber of Commerce, and candidate for Councilman at Large. Jim, you have been eating local for years. Now let's get loco on Ask an Innovator. I couldn't help myself. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cole.
So happy to have you. What is Thunder Bay's X factor?
I think when you think of Thunder Bay, a lot of times people don't realize the people. I think the people are the X factor of Thunder Bay. You know, we have this image sometimes outside in the province. Sometimes people are thinking of us, they think crime, and they think of the elevators, they think of being on the St. Lawrence, but really it's the people and the organizations that make Thunder Bay. You know, it's crazy to think how many individual community champions we have in a city like Thunder Bay that are all working on their own or in small groups to move the needle forward. You know, like it's wild when you start to realize how many people are all working to back each other up and to care about each other. I really think that's the X factor of Thunder Bay is that Thunder Bay really does have that big heart, as kind of that's a cliche term, but it's really true. The core of Thunder Bay really is this positive forward momentum.
Amazing. I'm glad. So glass half full, clearly glass half full.
Oh yeah, glass full.
I love it. The innovation to me is always the X factor. I love people that opt into the courage and the challenge when it comes to innovation. Is innovation happening? Is innovation alive and well in Thunder Bay?
Well, sometimes I think so. I think social innovation for sure. I think that there's a lot of people that are trying to move forward in that direction. I think that from a technology and business perspective, we have a little bit of work to do, but I think that the attitude is there. I think that there's an acceptance for. I think right now Thunder Bay has an energy that it wants to move forward, and I think that we just need to start putting the pieces together.
Do you think Thunder Bay has more local businesses per capita than other communities our size?
Oh, that's a great question. I have no idea the answer to that, I guess.
What would your gut say? What would your businessman say?
I would say yes. I think, I know a lot of people that have small businesses. I know a lot of people that have micro businesses. And it seems like a lot of people in Thunder Bay, regardless of having a career or not, a lot of people looking even for that side hustle, or they're looking to start something small, or their family has something that they support. So I think that many people in Thunder Bay are involved in business regardless of whether they own one or not.
I love it. I love the side hustle. Well said. Yeah. So is a side hustle a micro business?
Yeah.
I love it. What's an example of a side hustle?
The really small caterers, right? We see them pop up all the time. People that they start in their house and they're doing something on the side, and then all of a sudden they get a couple big contracts, or big business knows what they're doing, or they start doing lunches, and then they set up a brick and mortar, or they don't, or they go to the farmer's market, right?
Why do you think Thunder Bay has such an aptitude to support local businesses?
That's a really good question. I think it's because Thunder Bay is a working person city. You know, people in Thunder Bay they work hard for their money, they're honest with it, and they like to support each other. I think people are proud in Thunder Bay to see other people from Thunder Bay succeed. And I think that they like to prop each other up. I think that's another part of that X factor.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about all the time is 20 years, 15 years ago, Thunder Bay didn't have Walmart, we didn't have Home Depot, Best Buy. We may have had a McDonald's, I'm not really sure. We had the Hoyto, we had the Scan Home, we had local business, we had the Prospector. I mean, these were the options that people had. People didn't have banner multinational options. There was not an aptitude then to support local. There was a necessity. There was a need. There was no other way other than to support local. Do you think generationally, because Thunder Bay is such a community-driven, family-driven center, do you think generationally we still have an aptitude to support local because of our moms and dads and grandparents?
Well, I think in Thunder Bay, there's the drive to support Thunder Bay. I think that it's neat. We are a larger city center than a lot of other northern communities, but in Thunder Bay, we're large enough that we can support each other. Like, we're a large enough community that there's room for everyone, but it's small enough that everyone can make a difference. And I think that a lot of people in Thunder Bay are predisposed to that small town mentality where we're looking out for each other. So it unfortunately creates a little bit of a barrier to entry for people from the outside, and that's something that we are going to have to deal with going forward. But when you're inside of that, it's a phenomenal feeling of support that I've really enjoyed over the years.
Yeah, that's funny. I can relate to that. When I was 16, I moved to Thunder Bay, essentially from Toronto.
Yeah.
An awkward age to move and try to break into high school in the tightly woven community that was FWCI at the time. Luckily, I was okay at basketball. It wasn't good. I was okay. I could run fast. I couldn't really dribble, but I made the team, and that was, I think if I couldn't run fast, where the heck would I have ended up?
Yeah.
It was hard to crack in. So is Thunder Bay incestuous? Do you think that we're what would be the thing we need to X out? Are we kind of insular?
Well,
are we closed off a little bit?
I think a little bit. I think that as a city, we've done such a great job of supporting each other, and I think that there's a drive to make sure that Thunder Bay succeeds. But I think that we aren't historically that successful at our outreach and at our appearing inviting. And I think that if we can work a little bit harder on that, I think there's a lot of energy towards that. I think that we realize that as a community. I think we just have to shift a little bit the way that we look at people from the outside, and a little bit the way that we invite people and businesses and groups and families and students and everyone. We want to use them to create a better community for everybody, right?
Yeah. Is Thunder Bay still a blue collar town?
I think so, yeah. Thunder Bay is definitely a working person city.
It's amazing. Pulp and paper seems to be not so prevalent anymore, and we have a medical school now, we have a law school, we have a cancer research center, the state-of-the-art hospital. Seems pretty white collar.
It could seem that way, I guess, but I think the average person, even if you do have a job in technology, right, you still come from a working family. It's the history of our city, and it's still, I think, it's a big part of who we are.
Right. I get you. So the foundation, you're saying, will always be a working person's town.
At least for a while.
At least for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentrification? Is gentrification happening? Are things happening? Is downtown booming? Where is downtown?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I think that as a city, we've invested a lot into our waterfront and the marina area, but I think that what we're realizing now, as we're becoming more supportive of organizations and businesses that are popping up everywhere, what we're realizing is that as a city, we originally thought, it was Fort William, Port Arthur, and that's fine. Then we amalgamate, and now there's kind of that, sometimes there's a bit of a friction or tension between the two city centers.
Yeah.
But I think what we're really realizing is that we're actually a series of different size hubs, of community hubs around different areas, right? Like, you've had experience in the Bay Algoma area, right? There's the downtown Fort William, there's downtown West Fort, right? There's the waterfront, there's up in Current River. There's a whole bunch of these areas where businesses and groups and people and neighborhoods are banding together, and they create a small micro community. And I think our city is pretty diverse and spread out that way.
Wow, and I think our guest is diverse and spread out and wide in his vision. We're going to get into it. We're going to get a little deeper. We're going to talk about some of the vulnerabilities. We're going to talk about some of the successes. We might even talk about politics a little bit. We might dive into that. We might talk about Victoriaville, something that's very near and dear to my heart for whatever reason. Be right back. Ask an Innovator. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to Ask an Innovator. I often say that the best things on this show happen off camera. So Jim Stady here is a city councillor running on the ballot for city councillor at large. Now, we're not airing this before the election due to the fact that there is possibly a slight conflict of interest, which is fantastic, and we're good with that. Now, this is where it gets really fun. When you're watching this, Jim may or may not be a city councillor.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask you two questions. If you are city councillor, as our viewers are watching, what message do you have for them right now?
Oh, thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
I really appreciate the
by the
support
way.
from the community, and I think that moving together, we're going to be able to really harness that energy of Thunder Bay and hopefully really open up the budget and really rebuild community confidence.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, in my attempt at a monologue, I talked about failure. First to fail is first to innovate. If you did not win a seat on city council, as our viewers are watching, because the election has passed, are you looking at yourself as a failure? Are you looking at yourself as an innovator? Are you looking at yourself as a winner because you were first to fail? How do you feel about failure?
Fine. I think of failure as just another learning opportunity. I mean, you yourself, a consummate entrepreneur, right? You understand that being an entrepreneur...
I failed.
Yeah, right? Being an entrepreneur is just throwing spaghetti against the fridge, and you wait for one to stick, right?
That's
realistically. So when it comes to
spaghetti,
when it comes to politics specifically, I made the decision that I'm going to be a city councillor, and that it's the next logical progression of how I engage with the community. And if in the event that I haven't won right now, which is entirely possible, then I'm going to try again in 4 years. So I'm going to use the intervening time to connect even deeper with the community, to really show them who I am. So regardless of whether I'm elected now, which would be fantastic, or whether I'm not yet, I'm just going to keep engaging with the community in the way that I know that we need to move forward together.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love it.
And then as far as failure, I mean, I've experienced failure a bunch of times in my life. I mean, right now, Eat Local Pizza, which is doing fantastic, is Eat Local 2. We refer to our first one as Eat Local 1, which went down in 2014. You know, and we were stuck. We were surrounded by construction. We were in a very challenging place. And there was a lot of things that, you know, would we have been able to learn from without actually going through the process? I don't think so. But learning through that experience really shows you the right direction when you make the next move, and it allows you to succeed. And I think that without failure, there isn't the perspective and the scope on success.
Yeah, success is failure. Failure is success.
Well, you can't have one without the other.
You can't have one without the other. It's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
It's not complicated to understand, but people fear failure. Do you think, generally speaking, people fear failure?
Sure they do. Failure is hard, right? Failure is the frustration. Failure is the looking internally at yourself and having to really critique yourself, your core, and really critique what you feel in your heart. But once you've done it, though, once you've experienced it, and then you can experience success, you're able to exist in the area between the two, and that's the perspective. Because if you just succeed and you never experience failure, you have nothing to gauge it against, so you can't understand the struggle and the distance that you've traveled.
Dealing with failure, do you think dealing with failure has to do with placing emotion, processing emotions, processing ego? Would you say emotional management or ego management is more important when managing failure?
I think it all boils down to self-confidence. I think that once you believe in yourself and you can tap into your internal resilience, then the rest of it becomes points on a timeline. They don't all become the end game or the most important. You're never going to hit that crescendo where you believe you're at the climax of your entire life at one point, because you realize that there's an entire life to live, right?
I love it. So we've talked about failure. I think you just dropped some science on failure. I love it. Let's say you won the election and you are a city councilman. What are you doing for Thunder Bay?
Well, I'm going to be connecting again now with each community group and hub that I know of, and whichever ones I can find. And we're going to find these community champions, the people that are working at the grassroots level, and we're going to find out how to support them better. So right now, the city budget, obviously, there's a bit of critique towards it. It's obviously very full budget, right? And we don't want to increase taxes for families. So what we want to do is find efficiency. So with a lot of those organizations that are existing at the ground level, if we can help them to sort of get pre-accepted funding, or if we can go project by project, and if we can figure out a way to help them increase the amount of time that they're spending on programming, then we're going to have an effect that resonates throughout the community. Hopefully doing that is going to help to take some of the pressure off of the Thunder Bay Police Services as well, helping them to engage more in violent and gang-related crime. And I think that core focus, along with creating two-way communication with city council, between city council and constituents, and really rebuilding community confidence in the whole budget process and the whole governance piece, I think, is really important.
Wow, you are smooth. I love it. You have when you talk about politics, you just go into a zone, and I think it's totally natural. Where does it come from? Childhood? What happened? Political thirst?
Well, that's a good question, I guess, Cole. I've always been thrust into leadership positions, and it's not something I've been very well prepared for, to be
Whether
honest.
you wanted to or not.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's unfortunately the plight of a leader, is that I'm a person, I suffer from pretty severe social anxiety, and dealing with any amount of people. Well, I appreciate it. I try really hard, but dealing with people in any amount can be really scary and really frustrating for me, right? But I've always had the capacity for problem solving that has sort of proven a necessity for leadership. And so I've kind of had to deal with my own internal demons in order to be able to put myself in a position to make sure that the people that are depending on me can, right? And that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah. Butterflies, when you feel those butterflies.
Every day.
Yeah. And do you shy away from the butterflies, or do you opt into the butterflies?
I can't live a life where I can admit that something scares me. So the moment that you even asked me to be on the show, I started feeling butterflies in my stomach.
Great.
And that was long before I ever actually agreed to be on the show,
Yes.
right? And
you knew it was an inevitability.
that's right. I knew I would eventually. I knew that it was a
I've been
conversation.
asking Jim to be on the show now for about a year.
It has been about a year, yeah.
Begging, pleading.
The thing is, I never want to look back and regret that there was something that I was afraid of or that I couldn't do or that I plateaued. And so with that, I don't mind slamming into situations that I may experience failure, because then at least if I tried my best, then I never have to look back and regret it.
Yeah, and try your best. That's really all we can do as leaders, thrust into the leadership position or not. Let's dive into leadership a little bit more. Do you have any community leaders that you look up to as mentors in Thunder Bay or Northwestern Ontario? How many?
Dozens.
Dozens. I know you do. Yeah.
I don't know that I could even name them necessarily. I mean,
you don't need to, but we do have a core group of leaders here. Do you think they're world-class leaders? Do
Absolutely.
we have world-class leadership in
Sure we
Thunder
do.
Bay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we definitely do. Everywhere from advocacy to community service, crime reduction, neighborhood engagement. We have some of the most amazing people in the country here in Thunder Bay.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that Thunder Bay is often touted for, and I've been pretty much on the record to think that Thunder Bay sometimes has a bit of a glass half empty mentality. I think Thunder Bay underestimates themselves sometimes. One thing consistently where Thunder Bay rises up and glass half fulls the equation is when it comes to bringing up a family. You often hear Thunder Bay is a great place to raise a family. That seems to be a consistent piece of our community and our tapestry. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think Thunder Bay is a fantastic place to raise a family, and I can see where you're coming from with that. The general mentality is the glass half empty, but I think that that's for a lot of different reasons. A lot of them are different systemic problems that as a community that we have the opportunity to deal with together. I think that Thunder Bay really does, it has a soul that is net positive. I think Thunder Bay as a city wants more and believes in more, and I think it just really wants to know how to do it, if that makes sense.
There's a thirst?
Yeah, I think so.
I agree with you. Running businesses myself in Thunder Bay, you see that there is a thirst, there's a need. There is I think it's generational. I think it's
like a reflexive support. People want to support good things, they just don't always know what to rally behind. And I think that it's important for us to find those people that are doing that work at the grassroots level and help more people to see what they're doing and to really highlight that.
Yeah. Jim's got the conversation going about a rally. He's got me riled. I'm pretty pumped up right now. Last segment, we're going to dive into who knows what. We're just going to let it rip. It'll be about Thunder Bay. Stay with us. Ask an Innovator. Welcome back to Ask an Innovator. Jim Stady, a man of many talents. I have asked Jim to be on this show for almost a year right now. We were talking about courage. We were talking about fear. Jim was getting vulnerable. We always talk about vulnerability. We always do a few seconds about vulnerability. Is there strength in vulnerability?
Well, it's like anything else. It's like the success-failure component of being an entrepreneur, right? Is that when you've experienced negativity and hardship, it allows you to put in perspective any success that you can experience as well.
Yeah, well said. I needed to just bring up the vulnerability piece. Now we're going to skip right to Thunder Bay, back to Thunder Bay, back to something that's near and dear to me. Hashtag raise the roof. I had Ken Boschkoff on the show. We did almost an entire episode on Victoriaville. What the heck? What's going on in Victoriaville?
Sure, okay.
What are we doing? Rip the roof off?
No.
No.
Not yet.
All right.
I think that in Victoriaville, so I've taken the time, especially recently, to tour Victoriaville and talk to a lot of people that have businesses there, people that are customers and clients there. Yeah.
Of course you did.
And I think that what we need to do is we need to reevaluate the business plan there. Right now we have, realistically, we have city admin offices, and a bunch of different organizations that exist within that facility, it makes sense that before we were to knock it down, right, we should look at what it would look like to bring in a bunch of different smaller community organizations to place them there, the ones that have direct dealings with the city on a regular basis. Could we benefit as a community from having them situated in the same facility
Right.
before we look to tear it down? Because right now there's a whole bunch of empty spaces, and it doesn't seem like the business plan for Victoriaville really is developed to the point to be prepared to pivot like that.
Right.
So I think that the main direction has been to tear it down, and I get that. But I think that before we want to get to that point, we want to try to use a resource that already exists within the city and see what we can do with it before it got to the point where we would to tear it down.
Yeah. A farmer's market, maybe? A venue, a hall?
Well,
put a skating rink in it?
There's always options. The thing is that, I mean, each one of those represents a capital project.
Sure
I think
it
that
does.
if we were just to look at taking the empty spaces and filling them with groups that would benefit from being closer to the city, that's a great first start. And I think that just bringing more people in will benefit the food vendors that already exist in there. And then from there, once we had some actual rent coming in, we could look at then developing some sort of a capital project related to some of the larger empty spaces, and we could go from there. But I think that just from the entrepreneur perspective, let's look at working what we have without spending any more money, and then check feasibility. And if it doesn't work, then okay. But I think that we want to do our due diligence before making that decision.
Yeah. Well, yeah, due diligence is key, and due diligence comes at a cost. I think there's a lot of concern just about what Victoriaville costs. We had Ken on, and there was a wonderful and very prolific landlord in the Laritza family, Mike Laritza, provided me with some documentation on what Victoriaville costs taxpayers, and it's a very real number. It's a big number. It's got a bunch of zeros after it. And so is this something that should be brought to light, or is this something that's swept under the rug? And if it's not brought to light, why not?
Well, I'm not sure that there's nothing nefarious going on. I think what it is just that we have an organization that's separate from the city that runs Victoriaville, and I think that their mandate might be different from the community-driven mandate that we would want to impose on most city-owned facilities. So I think that before we would look at the cost of tearing it down versus the cost of continued upkeep, we'd want to see if we can bring the rental income up to the point where it matches upkeep first. Or at least we could look at a long-term project of what it would look like feasibly to tear it down in a way that worked with the budget. So if we could at least raise rent to the point where it was at least enough to offset that difference, it would make sense first.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, in my mind, I still envision the roof gone and a beautiful city street taking advantage of all the beautiful architecture and some vibrancy, and and a connect between Fort William and Simpson Street, and just a nice flow, a nice vein traveling directionally. In my opinion, I think that'd be fantastic.
For sure. And from my pizza man perspective,
Yeah.
that point represents a complicated piece for traversing the city.
For pizza delivery.
It absolutely does, right? And I think that from my own business's perspective, we would benefit from removing that. But I think that before I would look from the perspective of my own business, I'd want to be looking through the eyes of the people that are already there, and I think that they deserve a chance for us to evaluate whether or not it's feasible to continue before opening it up. But I do think you're right that it would look beautiful, and it would be an interesting way to redesign the area.
Yeah. Let's dive into the food scene of Thunder Bay, something that you and I have been connected on for many, many years. Isn't it fantastic?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's.
Is it world class?
I think so.
Pound for pound.
It's amazing how much it's changed in the last, say, 10 years. I remember when we first started Eat Local Pizza, people thought that it was silly, the idea of local food.
Yeah.
They thought that our name was silly, and they thought that the idea of contacting farmers didn't make any sense. And now it's become commonplace, and it's fantastic, and I love it.
Yeah, and you come by it very honestly. Your family are
we're
cattlemen,
farmers.
you're farmers,
Yep.
beef farmers, I think, and your father is still on the land?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. The restaurant scene in Thunder Bay, let's stick with it a little bit more. Do you have a favorite type of food other than pizza?
Steak.
Steak?
Yeah.
No, you're just saying that because it's me?
Well,
No.
I've eaten a lot of your steaks, Cole. No, I'm serious. I'm a beef guy when it comes to choosing what I'm going to eat. I really like steak. I think that we do a fantastic job as a city. I think Uptown Cut, Signature Steers done a fantastic job. The Tomlin, Lot 66. There's a bunch of places that do a great job.
Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing scene for sure. If there was one category of food that we're missing in Thunder Bay, would you be able to? We just had a faux restaurant open up, which was pho, I guess is the proper way to say it. What category? If you had to open up any type of cultured food type establishment, what would it be?
Well, I mean, interestingly enough, I think that a hole that I've noticed for a long time, just personally, is tacos. Like, I just want a place that I can go for cheap tacos, and I think that a lot of people think the same way.
Yeah.
And so I've been I mean, I have no idea by the time that the show airs, I might have a taco stand up. We'll see. I have a couple meetings this week. We'll see how it turns out. But
Yeah.
I think that
Street food.
Yeah.
Simple, affordable.
Well, I think what's happened in Thunder Bay is that there's been a core of a bunch of us, there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of people that have really pushed food forward and looked to make it sort of a central focus point in the conversation, right? And I think because of that, it's made people feel more confident in trying new things and eating out more as a family, eating out more individually, going out for lunch, dinner dates, that sort of thing. And I think what it's done is it's opened up opportunities now for a bunch of peripheral markets where
Yeah.
people can get in and do small things and they can do pop-up projects, and that the barrier to entry has been lowered a lot.
It has been, actually, absolutely. Food is cultural, food is entertainment in Thunder Bay. Food is part of the tapestry of what we do in the winter months. If we're not a family going to arenas and curling, we go out for dinner.
Absolutely.
It's a big part of what we do, and it's a big part of why restaurants are so successful in Thunder Bay. I'm going to read you what I prepared in closing. It mirrors a little bit
Okay.
of what we read at the beginning. So I'm pretty pumped up about this episode. I really thank you for being here.
That was lots of fun.
All things beautiful and all things Thunder Bay. Jim brought the X Factor. After a year of asking, pleading, and mostly begging, he finally showed up. He opted in, he X'd it up, hit a home run for the home team. Thunder Bay is our home. Thunder Bay is Jim's home. Let's treat it that way. Let's encourage each other to innovate like Jim, to get out there and be first at something. Innovate something, build it, rethink it, and do it different. There is no one saying the world's next great idea is not right here in our community. Be like Jim. Ask an Innovator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cole.